account, that novelty account. That's like my favorite thing on Twitter right now. I forget what it's called though.
That wolf account.
Yeah. It's not a wolf. It's at Sick of Wolves. It's
when
fantastic.
you retweeted that one, I instantly followed it. I knew I had to follow this account.
Instead of having an election, has anyone considered sprinting into the woods and never returning? And yes, I have.
I would love to do that.
Oh, it really is an excellent account. Even scrolling through the history, I was largely impressed.
I thought the Gawkin site was a nice find today.
Gawkin,
yes, that was a good find.
Yes. Please note that that Thiel's refrigerator does not express the views of this website.
Hey, hold on, Liam. I'm going to retweet a Not As Wolf thing specifically for you because this is right up.
I don't think we're live on YouTube yet.
Are we not?
Are we supposed to be?
I said start broadcast. There might be
I'm in the chat.
Delay.
And
because I have it set for chat or conferencing latency versus viewer speed. You get quality settings.
That is a quality setting. Only the best for the AP podcast.
Let's see. Yeah, it's working now. Okay.
Okay, I enjoy this.
I know, it's a good account, right?
Amazing.
I love font. It is a living. It puts blood on the table. How does this not have like 1 million followers?
I don't know. It really should. I don't know where I found it. Somebody probably retweeted it at some point, but yeah, it's pretty great.
I think my favorite one so far is where's the subway? I found one earlier that was like about the wolf getting on a train. And I was like, oh, that's a good tweet. Train.
Of course I have a preferred type of pen since I have spent so much time gripping all the different kinds. This is an issue that matters.
So which chat are we using, by the way?
I'm using the MIRC one.
Okay.
And
good.
the other one.
I'm using YouTube.
I mean, I can disable the YouTube chat, but I feel like it's not a good idea.
Everybody likes the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
I mean, but like when the alternative is IRC.
IRC, are you saying IRC is good or bad?
Bad. IRC is bad.
Okay, me too.
All right, fine. We'll use the YouTube chat. Yeah, it's native-y, which is nice.
Yeah, it's native-y. And it has emojis. What else do you want, honestly?
Oh,
you want me to press Command Control Space like some kind of caveman?
Okay.
I mean, at least it does the pop-out chat.
Oh, yes, it does. That is true.
That's a nice feature. I'll give it.
I'm popping it out. And then it has the little ninja illustration.
Yes, nothing to see here. Move along.
We popped out.
Yes, that's good. That's
so good.
I might actually look at the chat now instead of not doing that.
You don't look at the chat.
It's like I don't like to have the page up the whole time. I have other things on my screen.
Orion, I'm going to say I don't like what I'm hearing right now.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, so while we're waiting to start the show, can anybody tell me why when I make 2 reminders in a row, both using voice commands on my phone, while one of them went to Google Now and one of them went to Inbox, and there's not really any rhyme or reason to why?
Because reminders are a headless product, and I think at this point even Google doesn't know.
I mean, okay. Well, that's certainly one plausible option. I think more likely the apps on your phone are fighting, so you're gonna
Yes.
have to just wait for them to duke it out, and then one of the apps will just
I should go
it'll
back
just
inside.
one of the apps will just die eventually, and then
Which of the apps has the quad laser? That's what I want to know.
Oh, this is my
So-
favorite one. Guys, all right, I found it. Public transit is the worst. So cramped, so smelly. Everyone always screaming. Wolf on the train. Oh God. Oh my God. Wolf on the train.
that's excellent. It's such a brilliant account.
It really
It's subtle enough that the joke doesn't get old. At least it hasn't yet.
Okay. I guess we are now ready. Now that I've found that tweet, that is very important. I will do the ad roll. This week's Android Police podcast is brought to you by Linode. Check them out at linode.com/AndroidPolice for a free $20 Linode service credit.
Welcome to the Android Police Podcast, your weekly audio source for all things Android. It is Wednesday, September 14th, 2016. I'm your host, Matthew Smith.
I'm David Reddick.
I'm Liam Spradlin.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
For some reason, halfway through saying the date, I just got this paranoia that I've said 2015 every time I've said it this entire year until
You
just now.
have. We didn't want to say anything.
You guys just haven't told me.
Yeah, we're just being nice.
We're just really good friends.
All right,
Let you make
so
all kinds of mistakes.
yeah, well, it's better to just let me make them over and over again and never tell me.
I mean, how
That's what
else
real
will you
friends do.
learn if we don't let you make these mistakes?
I usually just wait until a mistake causes something catastrophic to happen before saying anything.
Well, usually we just wait for the listeners to point them out. And then David shames me in an email chain.
Yeah, that's how you know that hasn't actually happened, because you.
I am the one
definitely-
who said Linode for like a year, so you know.
That's true.
But you know, none of the readers
Granted,
told you, because
They know
nobody.
the wrong person to
but,
tell us
okay,
that.
but none of the readers told you, which tells you that that's not actually a thing people knew. That's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing Linode knew.
Okay.
All right, well, we should start doing the show now. As much as this meta conversation is fantastic and all, but we got some googly stuff to talk about. So obviously, I think this next story is something we all could have assumed. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a Nexus launcher that leaked out into the wild, and we got to see some of the features and quite ready. But now we're hearing, of course, the Nexus launcher is now the Pixel launcher. And again, for fairly obvious reasons. So Pixel Launcher makes it seem pretty official, right?
Boom. Also
Boom.
clears up the whole confusion about it being called Nexus Launcher, and like what would that mean if the Pixel phones had a Nexus Launcher, and why would that? But then it creates confusion because like can a non-Pixel device have a Pixel Launcher? And I kind of
Probably
wonder.
not.
I'm gonna guess not either, which means that the Nexus 6P and 5X and Nexus 9 and Nexus 6
Well,
won't get this launcher.
I mean,
unless-
but I mean, is it going to rely on some sort of system component to work, or will you be able to just?
Well,
I mean,
if
I'm
it
sure
has
people-
Google Now on the side, then the answer is yes.
What if it didn't have that, like in the final version? What if it was just like a launcher with a bunch of other stuff?
If they got rid of the Google finger, I would not mind that at all, actually.
I don't like the Google finger.
But yeah, Google's going full on like manufacturer skin on the Pixel phones, it seems, with their own settings and system UI, and now this launcher, which has many various features that we'll talk about at another date.
Many various beautiful features. I guess I'm going to talk about one that's not really the launcher then. The flower home button, the one with the color sticking out on all four sides, or on four sides, is that's gone. So it's now a circle with a larger thin circle around it. So it looks like the icon for the Pixel launcher, except not blue and without a G in the middle. So what happens now is when you press the home button, the dots fly out. And apparently if you just tap the home button, the dots like bounce out like a little bit for just a second and then bounce back in. Because that's what you do to provide a delightful user experience.
Well, when you have like a totally undiscoverable UI interaction, you have to add extraneous animations here and there, you know?
When all else fails, delight.
You've got to congratulate the people who found the unfindable.
Yep. Not that you'll be able to see it anyway, because it's happening under your thumb.
Under your thumb, right.
I feel like finding the unfindable is like a tagline we would hear at a press event for a new phone. Not naming any names.
Yep. So I actually just kind of want to come out with, I want to preempt this with another launcher called the Pixel Launcher, which is actually just everything is one color. And then your app icons just are one pixel that's expanded out to be the size of a full icon.
I really want that to be a thing.
Yeah. And it'll be customizable. You'll be able to choose what color your launcher is, the single pixel launcher.
You'll actually be able to choose from the entire gamut of colors.
Yes.
Any
There are
color
no
you want.
labels.
Even
It's
colors
just
that
one.
you shouldn't pick because they're ugly.
Also, the effective touch area is also 1 pixel, so good luck.
Actually, we could have a plugin where the pixel color will automatically change to whatever color the every color Twitter bot tweets about.
That would be excellent. You know, this reminds me of an idea I had for an icon pack that was called literally just colored circles. And it would make all the icons circles of random colors.
How come this hasn't ever happened?
I just never felt like actually doing it.
I think the reason it hasn't happened is because people would open up their app drawer and suddenly crush their phone by playing Twister on it.
I mean, that's intended behavior.
Oh, okay. Good. Good.
So yeah. Oh, how about those Pixel phones?
How about those Pixel phones?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix this issue on the main AP channel. I accidentally started to make the live stream there and realized what I was doing before I started it. And now it's showing that there's a scheduled event on the live stream, and I don't know how to delete it.
It's there forever.
Oh, delete. Okay, there, it should be gone now. Yeah, thank you for Alan in the chat. Wait, no, it wasn't Alan. It's
Dave.
Dave. Thanks, Dave. Really
Thanks,
helped me out
Dave.
there. So it should be gone now. YouTube's events UI sucks. It's like really bad. Okay, so we can move on now. Cut all this out.
Cut all that out. Cut it out. All right, so David, you wrote a little piece on the website regarding the Pixel phones and how their upcoming release kind of represents Google moving into iPhone-like complete phone product offering system. So I don't know, let's chat about that.
So what I think we're seeing from these phones now, based on what we know, is that, you know, after all these years of, well, except for the Nexus 6, but the Nexus 6 was weird. And Google tried to make this narrative from the Nexus 4, and it's a Nexus 5. Forget the Nexus 6 happened, and then the 5X and 6P of Nexus phones. You know, they're about, you know, showcasing a partner brand, you know, showing what an Android partnership is about, and providing a good experience, kind of a benchmark for software performance and what Google felt was ideal for Android to be like. To showcase a pure Android is I think Google themselves used to use in some marketing stuff. And the idea was you'd give this bit a pretty good value because it's something you want developers to pick up when they would think about designing their apps, and they had some kind of aspiration for commercial success, but especially the Nexus 4 and 5 weren't marketed much at all. The Nexus 6 was weird in that it was weirdly expensive and also looked nothing like a Nexus phone prior because it clearly wasn't actually a Nexus phone. It was just turned into one. And then the 5X and 6P got real serious about the Nexus program, it felt like. At the event where they were launched, it was pretty small, and I felt like Google didn't want to play up what they were doing with the Nexus phones too much. But they introduced Nexus Protect. They introduced, Nexus Imprint. They introduced the Nexus Sensor Hub or whatever. They tried to make Nexus kind of feel like a product brand and less like, just, well, we have to call these something, and Nexus is as good as anything else. It felt like Google was starting to be like, well, what if we marketed these phones? What if we, really tried to get them out there and see if people were interested. And then they did financing through Project Fi to try to make them more accessible if you wanted to use Google's wireless service, which, they probably didn't sell that many that way, but it was there. And then with this year coming along, we see Google shifting to, in-house design on the phones. Whether the technical and engineering bits are all Google isn't clear. I'm guessing a lot of them aren't. But the design of the phones is supposedly 100% Google. Google is getting much more heavy-handed in providing the phones exclusive software features, stuff that you couldn't just take and build from AOSP on anymore. Although, arguably, last year's phones you can really do that either with some bits. But there's more of that stuff now. And then you've got the whole idea of two phones, basically identical, different sizes, and battery capacities to accommodate and display resolutions, but otherwise the same. And that feels much more like Apple than even Samsung's phone approach does. It feels like Google wants to actually provide, a narrative or create this narrative that there is an alternative to the iPhone where you get good support, you get well-managed software, which some people would disagree with about Nexus devices based on past experiences. You get updates quickly. You don't have to worry about third-party software on your phone that you don't want to be there. And you just have overall a cleaner, easier experience. You buy everything from the same store. You don't have to mess with the carrier, although they may sell them at Verizon if you don't want to. You can buy the warranty from Google. Supposedly you'll be able to finance from Google. You'll have a much more all-in-one experience than Google's offered to date. And last year's Nexus phones, I think, came close to this, but I think this year's Pixel phones will really complete the circle and offer something, at least in America, I don't know about other countries, that even Samsung hasn't really managed to pull off yet. Whether they'll be successful, that's the completely different story. Google will probably, by standard metrics, fail miserably compared to the iPhone, but that they're trying, I think, is what's interesting about this whole thing so far.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's a much more polished consumer-facing approach than we've seen in the past. And I think we can all kind of agree the Nexus 6 just it was last minute thrown together kind of a thing. So that kind of comparison, it doesn't, yes, it bucked some of the trends, but it's because they didn't really do it the way they would have done it had they had all the time in the world. So
did anybody ever confirm that it was going to be an Android Silver phone? I know that's what we heard unofficially.
We knew about the Moto S, right? Which was supposedly the first.
So that was the only reason, the Moto S name got thrown around a few times, but Moto HK, that Hong Kong leaker with really bad English, leaked a photo of a retail screen protector. There's the plastic you pull off the phone that said Moto S on it, and they have a great track record with Moto leaks because they have somebody who works at a factory that makes Moto phones, obviously. And so that was the only physical evidence I think we ever had. But yeah, that almost definitely. I've never even seen anybody at Motorola or Google try to refute it either. Granted, who knows how far along it really got, and who knows exactly when it was changed to a Nexus phone. All they really had to do was change the back plate, so there wasn't a lot of work to be done there.
All right, so if you happen to have one of those Nexus devices mentioned, you should be getting access to the Project Fi Wi-Fi Assistant application. It should be available to you now or very soon if you haven't gotten it yet. So remind me again, what the Wi-Fi Assistant, what all benefits does that bring to you?
You get to automatically connect to secure Wi-Fi hotspots. And then once it connects you, then it puts a VPN over the connection, basically.
I thought it
And these are
automatically
all
connected to unsecure Wi-Fi hotspots, then secured them
No.
with the VPN.
no. Okay. Now it can secure unsecured hotspots, but before it was only connecting automatically to hotspots that Google had verified the quality of. So
But
that,
okay, but
that
not
included like
but like open Wi-Fi, not
Yeah,
like
that's-
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Open
Yeah.
open Wi-Fi networks that Google had
which is
knew
the
about.
term you'd use for unsecured in Wi-Fi speak. So it now
Sure.
works with untrusted Wi-Fi networks would probably be the better way to say it, because unsecured is usually synonymous with open.
Yeah, I just looked on my 6P today and it has this, but I mean, like, it's kind of buried in the Google settings.
And you have to turn it on?
I had to turn it on, but maybe that's not the case for everybody. That is unclear to me. But maybe there's like a notification or something the first time you connect to an eligible network or something. But yeah, I mean, I had to like poke around in the settings to find it.
Yeah, that's odd that they would bury it like that.
That seems like a good way to get nobody to use it.
Well, I mean, I would guess that Google probably doesn't want a massive influx of new traffic on the VPN, maybe out of the blue.
Maybe it'll be on by default, like in a future OTA or something.
And I had read from at least one person that it did adversely affect speeds substantially for, and I mean, it makes sense, it's a VPN, but I wonder just how much it will affect it. I mean, I'm sure Google of all companies has the ability to scale something like that.
I mean, a VPN shouldn't necessarily affect speed that much, but I mean, if Google's just not devoting, a ton of bandwidth, then, it could.
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah, you got to kind of think a VPN primarily is just giving you one more hop in your internet traffic that already consists of dozens of hops. So your speed shouldn't be massively affected as long as all of the connections operate at the same speed or better speeds.
Yeah. So, and I think it makes sense that they brought it to all the devices about now, because almost certainly the Pixel device, they want the Pixel phones to have this out of the box. Is another thing they can say is a Pixel, not Pixel exclusive, but exclusive to the Pixels and phones built by Google in the past. Just so they can have another. I think this Pixel phone launch will be all about, here's what you can do on a Pixel phone that you can't do on any other Android phone, or what you get, or what the experience is. So this is just another bullet point they will have.
All right, last little bit of Google news, a little bit disappointing for any of you guys out there who may have been holding off on an Android Wear purchase, which probably isn't a whole lot of people, but if you've been holding off waiting for new Android Wear devices, we're not hearing anything real solid that says that we'll see the Google Watches being released on October 4th, but now we're also hearing that Huawei, Motorola, or LG, none of them apparently set to release new Android Wear smartwatches in 2016. So.
Yeah, so I guess now is the time to buy a cheap Huawei watch if you've had your eye on one.
Yeah, I guess. You could have
the 360s have been getting discounted pretty good too, I think. So the 360 second edition.
You can have the gold one with the fake diamonds in the ring.
That is super, super gaudy. But no, I mean, even after about a year, the Huawei watch is still probably the best Android Wear device you can get.
I love mine. I wear it every day.
Oh, I haven't worn mine in like 2.5 months now, probably maybe 3 months.
Yeah, you stopped wearing yours with the new Android Wear beta update, right?
But that basically took something I didn't like that much and just made me hate it.
Yeah, well, I guess the rest of us are kind of still waiting through the regular chains to get the upgrade, so
I mean,
maybe it'll change my feeling about it.
I usually wear an Android Wear device whenever I leave the house, which is not all the time. But I mean, it's not it's something that I just sort of am used to having, but it doesn't like make or break my experience. If I were to walk out the door without it, I probably wouldn't go back.
Yeah, definitely. And that's essentially what caused me to stop wearing mine. Oh, I forgot it, and I don't care. Like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, you're supposed to wear that, but then I'm like, why? What am I getting out of this experience?
I can say honestly,
wait, nothing.
I had to send mine in. I had to send mine in to get it reflashed because an update broke its Bluetooth connection, and like I didn't have it for 2 weeks, and for 2 weeks, like I would have phantom vibrations on my wrist, and I was constantly looking at my wrist, and there was nothing there, and it was just very depressing.
I mean, I guess I like I said, I understand that, especially if you're in a certain work environment or certain profession, smartwatches can probably be a lot more useful to you. But you know, for me, it never stuck. But that Huawei, Moto, and LG aren't releasing new Wear devices this year is totally unsurprising. I'm surprised LG stuck around with Wear as long as they did.
Yeah, they've done a lot. I mean, but like if you were going to release a watch right now, what would you do with it that's any different than the watches they've already released?
Yeah, and there really isn't anything. You can put a newer chip in it, and
I bet that's the Snapdragon 2100 or whatever. Like, it's probably a much more expensive part than a Snapdragon 410 or whatever they've been using this whole time.
I mean, maybe, I don't even know, but the only new watch announcements are basically, I mean, there's the Asus ZenWatch 3, which Asus basically was like, listen, we got to do a round one, and that's probably, I feel like maybe Asus's smartwatch experiment will end here. And then you've got all the designer ones that they announced earlier this year that are finally coming out.
Yeah, those are just like bad things. They're the exact same hardware as every other watch, with, I think, kind of really niche designs and just weird stuff going on, but they're also really expensive. Like,
yeah, and well, I mean, they're designer brands, so they figure they can charge a premium. And granted, the people who are probably looking at these things on the designer brand websites aren't the sort of people who have any idea what a smartwatch costs anyway, aside from maybe an Apple Watch. So they have maybe a that's what they're going for, I guess. I mean, my theory remains, and the reason I think they all have the same internal specifications is that I bet Google is doing basically 100% of the maintenance and upkeep and firmware bring up for these watches. Because like, who at Nixon is like who's doing their smartwatch firmware? I mean, nobody.
I thought that was a known fact, though.
Yeah, well,
like
that Google
tells
the
them
updates.
Yeah.
But I think it probably extends deeper than that. I think Google probably has essentially a reference design, and they tell manufacturers, if you want to use this, we can basically do everything for you. And all you have to do is figure out, procurement-wise, get the hardware design done. You can choose from a selection of displays, and maybe even Google provides you can use this manufacturer because we have an existing supply chain relationship. I would be very curious to know how all this works, because these
I thought that was exactly how it worked.
I don't know. I've never really heard somebody talk about it. So anybody at Google at least. So I would be very curious to understand how that works, because for the luxury brands especially, there is no way they could ever hope to be profitable with these products if they had to do any of that stuff themselves. It would be impossible. And even with all of Google's help, I would bet they would still lose net money on these products.
All right, so sad news, I guess, for people looking to upgrade Android Wear. Luckily, I am really glad that I got the Huawei watch back in January, because I'm pretty sure that I would be really, really itching to upgrade my ZenWatch 1 at this point.
Yeah, well, it probably would have died by now, so it's okay.
I think
that's okay. I got it. I still use it when I work out because I don't care if it gets all crappy.
I think I still have a ZenWatch 1 around here someplace. I mean, I liked it at the time. Like, it was a good first gen watch.
Certainly better than the G Watch.
Yes.
The Guar. All right, so we got a word from our sponsor to fit in, Dave, if you want to roll that beautiful bean footage.
This week's Android Police podcast is brought to you by Linode. Linode has hosted AndroidPolice.com for over 6 years now. Not only are we very happy with their service, we're extremely proud to have them as a sponsor here on the show. And as part of our partnership, you, our listeners, can get a free $20 Linode service credit today just by signing up at linode.com/AndroidPolice. That's L-I, N as in no, O, D as in dog, E.com/AndroidPolice. That is a no strings attached $20 service credit that you can use today to get a server up and running. Now, what do you get for $20? Well, you could get 2 months of service on Linode's base tier, which gets you a server with 2 gigs of RAM, 1 CPU core, 24 gigs of storage, 2 terabytes of transfer capacity, 40 gigs per second communication inside the network, and 125 megabits per second out. If you need something more robust, well, Linode's got you covered. Their servers go all the way up to 120 gigabytes of RAM, 20 CPU cores, 1920 gigabytes of SSD storage, 20 terabytes of transfer capacity, and 10 gigabits per second outside the network communication speed. So Linode has pretty much anyone covered that needs a powerful server. So if you head to linode.com/AndroidPolice, you can check them out. They have add-on services you'd expect as well, backups, node balancers, and Longview, and basically everything you need to get a server up and running right now. So go ahead and check them out. And thanks again to Linode for sponsoring the show.
All right, thanks to Linode for sponsoring us. Moving on to, so we talked, obviously we talked last week about the exploding Note 7s, the recall, all that good news. I think probably the big story this week, aside from FAA guidelines about powering your phone off in flight and no charging and all this good stuff, also some, honestly, a little bit misleading or irresponsible reporting that we're seeing regarding some things that are happening with no relation to the Note 7 issue. Like the big case in point, the 6-year-old kid in Brooklyn, while having the phone burn his hands, was certainly not something that anybody wants to see happen. It also looks like it has absolutely nothing to do with the Note 7 or a bad battery from Samsung. So,
well, we don't.
The eye.
It could be a bad battery from Samsung. We don't know that.
But this phone was actually a Galaxy Core Prime, which has a removable battery, so that could have been anything.
It could, and I there's essentially two possibilities here that would, kind of not. Well, one doesn't necessarily take the blame away from Samsung, but it's far more understandable. A lot of times, especially if a phone's older and if it sits on the charger a lot and gets hot, i.e. a phone that's being used by a kid to play games and that you basically have to keep on the charger to keep charge when you're doing that, well, the battery gets stressed from the heat and just from general handling. So there's a very common phenomenon with removable or with lithium-ion batteries where they essentially start to balloon when they basically get overstressed, and so they bulge. And this happens in literally every brand of phones. And yes, it happens in iPhones too. Granted, you don't see a lot of reporting on it, but it definitely does happen. It's a very common way for lithium-ion batteries to fail. Sometimes it does result in, fiery explosion death. Sometimes it doesn't do anything, it just gets fat. And you throw away the phone or replace the battery. So if that's what happened, then yeah, this could happen with literally any phone, and does happen with literally any brand of phone, and it's not in and of itself news, unless you're, unless your goal is to say lithium-ion batteries are in some way inherently unsafe and need to be fixed because some of them do this sometimes, which is silly. And the other option is that, yeah, counterfeit battery, fake battery, third-party battery, whatever.
I had a swollen battery in my Palm Trio 650, for which I've always blamed Samsung.
Yep, it's their fault.
Yeah. totally. So yeah, the kid was burned by not a Note 7, and now you've got that woman in England whose Galaxy S7 Edge burned up too, and who knows what happened
there are always a few phones that catch fire, either because they're defective, or like 1 in a million chance, or because somebody did something to them. But I mean, that's not usually a problem, except right now because there's all this hysteria over the Note 7. And like, I mean, obviously, the New York Post should have not written this story. Like they did not do their due diligence. And I just want to point out there are literally 3 reporters' names on the article. 3 people contributed to this like 100-word article, and none of them had the time to check to make sure that it was a Note 7.
But they did have the time to go back and rewrite the whole thing without any notice, so that they got the name of the phone right. That was real classy. New York Post.
Did they actually change the title too?
I don't know. I didn't actually look at it. Just remember Artem saying that they had stealth edited the whole thing. Yeah, the New York Post doesn't exactly have a great reputation to begin with. But right now we're reaching that stage where the misinformation around this is peaking, and not to say that that means ignoring or discounting stories of bad things happening with Samsung Note 7 batteries, but it probably does mean that some of the stuff you hear won't end up being true, or it's not the full story, or it's somebody looking essentially for attention or a payday. I'm sure there are law firms out there like getting ready, like gathering their mailing lists of people they can figure out who might have a Note 7 and asking if it exploded and if they want to sue Samsung. So I'm sure that's going to be a thing. It's just I mean, Samsung's still screwed up, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is turning into quite a problem for them. I mean, I was on a plane yesterday, and no fewer than 3 times they announced, please don't use the Galaxy Note 7 because it might explode. So they're getting a lot of bad press for this.
Yes, they are. And then there's the whole issue of like, oh, well, some planes are just like, some of the flight attendants don't even know what they're really, like, just Samsung phones. Galaxy, you got a Galaxy, turn it off.
I've seen some people on Reddit and comment sections say that they've been told, to not use like their Galaxy S7 or whatever because it was, a Galaxy something and they didn't know any better.
Someone said, it might have been in our chat, but somebody said that a flight attendant told them to turn off their 6P. So like for some people, like any non-iPhone is a Samsung. And now that the Note 7 exploded, every phone is also a Note 7.
I mean, we've gotten to a point where we're allowing people to bring sometimes very large capacity lithium-ion batteries onto planes, any of which could blow up, at any time. I mean, I don't really think it's like that much more of a risk, frankly, to have a Note 7 on the plane.
Yeah, seriously, the only real risk is that you're just going to cause a panic. There's no way that could cause a serious fire on a plane. They would manage to put that out, I'm sure.
So I'd like to bring a little bit of a point of reference. So there were actually stories back in December of 2015 regarding iPhone 6s catching on fire. December of 2015, iPhones catching on fire. March of 2016, there was an iPhone 6 that caught on fire on an airplane. And then the FAA discussed whether or not they were going to ban iPhones on airplanes. So honestly, I think we can all agree Samsung has a bit of a problem on their hands. But if we're going to assume that Samsung is only the company that's ever had phones with batteries that exploded, we're wrong. And also, I suspect that the reason that the FAA was so quick to act on the Note 7 is because of what happened with the iPhone 6. Because a phone actually did catch on fire on an airplane, and it was an iPhone that did it. So
I don't even recall that happening. Jeez.
Yep.
I also think that the whole fact that Samsung did the recall is probably what really probably ended up egging the FAA into doing that, because
but it's got to bring, because it was by the way, it was an Alaskan Air flight back in March. that the phone caught on fire, and yeah, I'm sure that the recall is what brought it to their attention. But I think the reason that recall led them to what they did probably had something to do with the fact that, hey, we had this happen once before and it was pretty bad.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, well, Samsung just doesn't have probably the clout or reputation either. I'm sure that Apple was, heavily lobbying the FAA at that time not to issue any kind of warning or anything like that.
And then everybody at the FAA was like, actually, I have an iPhone, and I would prefer to not have to leave it at home.
Yeah, seriously, that would not surprise me in the least. So I think that, yeah, the damage to Samsung's brand is getting very real at this point because of this whole incident.
I mean, plus side, if you want to buy a Note 7, I bet they're going to be real cheap in a couple months.
What I also wonder, too, is if this will affect how Samsung does supply for new phone launches going forward, because the real problem has been, well, from day one, you couldn't just go into a store and get a new Note 7 because none of the fixed serial number devices have arrived anywhere yet. So Samsung's telling people, well, return your phone, and if you actually want the same phone, though, you won't get it right now. And so a lot of people are like, what do we do?
And a lot of reps I've been hearing have been like discouraging people from turning in the phones, which I think is probably why the CPSC actually got involved to make it like an official recall with like rules, because there was some shady stuff going on the retail side.
Yeah. So
you don't say.
Yeah.
I mean, and for consumers, a lot of them, whenever there's a product recall, people get super upset if they're in the recall group and they don't have a solution in front of them immediately. So it's unfortunate that in doing the right thing and recalling the phone, Samsung has actually greatly exacerbated the irritation people feel about it.
So let me ask you this: was it a mistake for Samsung to announce the recall before they had the replacement stock available?
I don't think so, because they don't want to get sued. Legally, you have to make that decision, I think, because
if it ever comes out that they knew they were going to do a recall, and then like held off, and somebody got injured by an exploding phone, they would be in deep, deep trouble.
Okay. Well, I'd like to point out that this light bulb just burned out mid-show. It's probably because of the Note 7.
Yeah, probably. So, as Alan Gold says in the chat, cars have recalls all the time, and this is a good discussion. So, with cars, obviously, sometimes they have recalls for things because, well, you might die, and that's like the Takata airbag thing has been huge. But I think that we're so generally in most countries where cars are common, so used to it, that it's just like, oh, it's just a recall. Just go get it fixed. It's a car. Take it in a dealership. They fix it for free. Maybe it takes a few hours. Maybe they give you a loaner car, whatever. We're so used to the process of how that works. And honestly, for some people, and there's relatively little risk you actually be without a car when something like that happens. But the fact of the matter is, like the Takata recall, which has affected, it's got to have affected tens of millions of cars by now. You could have an airbag shoot metal shrapnel in your face, and then you're dead. It's a pretty serious issue, right? A Note 7 catching on fire is unlikely to kill you unless, you put it under a pillow to let it charge overnight, and then, your bed catches on fire, and then your house burns down, and then you die.
Yeah, and if you have a car with a defective airbag and a maybe defective airbag, and you take it into the dealership, the dealer's not going to be like, well, I mean, I can do it, but I have to order the parts, and it'll take a few hours, and the odds of it actually killing you are pretty small. I think you should just keep it. That doesn't happen.
Well, Cody says so. There's very few total recalls that occur with cars, but that's because cars are inherently modular systems. I mean, a phone, they can't make this repair. Samsung's not going to hire 100,000 or 1,000 private contractors to do Note 7 battery replacements. A, because they usually damage the phone anyway, probably, and B, because that's just not how the phone was built. So it is interesting to see how much more the negative press they get over this, versus something that might actually be materially a greater danger to owners of a product, and yet this is the one that really is making people go nuts. Maybe fire's just hot right now.
Fire's always hot.
Yeah.
The car equation, I think probably the best equation would be there was, this is maybe a good sign for Samsung because I don't remember who it was, but somebody had a problem with their trucks where the gas tank was mounted, and every time there was a rear end collision, they exploded.
I want to say that was who? I want to say it was either GM or Ford.
GM. For some reason, I was thinking it was Chevy trucks or Ford trucks. So I'm kind of with you. I don't remember which one it was.
I do recall that one.
That story was really big for a fair amount of time, and then it just kind of went away, and now people are buying the trucks just like they always did. So,
granted, the accelerator pedal thing haunted Toyota for years. Yeah. That was not one that went away.
It was Chrysler.
Oh, was it Chrysler?
Yeah.
For a pickup truck?
No.
Oh, well, there's been lots of recalls for cars because of exploding gas tanks. That's, the Ford Pinto is the iconic one.
Yeah, but they had a problem with the location and how it hangs below the rear bumper. If somebody hit you in the back, then it explodes. Yep. So it sounds similar.
Yep. This is, I feel like the Ford F-250 maybe was the one that had this problem, but I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, I think that, eventually everybody will forget about it, but it seems to be, the reaction seems outsized, comparatively, compared to some of the severity of recalls we get for cars. So, yeah. Bummer for Samsung.
Wow, if you do a search for exploding gas tank recalls, it appears as though every major manufacturer has had this problem at some point in time.
I mean, who would have thought that a giant tank of flammable fuel might occasionally cause issues?
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, well, weird. Gotta put it somewhere.
Yeah. All right, so in light of the exploding Note 7 issues, it appears as though the LG and the V20, which kind of hits a lot of the right notes, specifically regarding what?
It's the right notes.
Oh, hey. Anyways, it's hitting a lot of the right notes, specifically in the fact that it doesn't explode, and it has
it doesn't yet, I guess.
We'll
find out.
See, this is what LG should have used Jason Statham for. He's just walking with a V20 and everything around him is exploding. And then he runs up, he walks up to the camera, and then it's like, I don't know. You'd have to have some kind of clever thing for Jason Statham to say, about the phone not exploding. But everything.
I think to really drive home the point, he would actually have to be walking through a group of people who are all looking at their phones one by one exploding.
Yeah, that might come off a little less tasteful.
Yeah, that could go either way.
Yeah, but I think that LG really couldn't have hoped for a better turn of events in the last few weeks with this phone. We still don't know when it's actually launching in the U.S. though, so it may be that Samsung will largely recover in time.
Did it come out in Korea?
Not yet. I don't think it comes out in Korea till like over a week from now. It'll be out.
So then it'll still technically be the first Nougat phone, the first phone to ship with Nougat, even if it only comes out in Korea for the next month and a half.
Yeah, they'll still be able to say it. So there's that. I mean, but more to the point of this thing I wrote. I think that the Note 7 battery thing. I mean, LG could not have hoped for a luckier break with this phone. Oh yeah, we're having to take away everybody's Galaxy Note 7. That may impact their decision on whether or not they want a new one, and probably will. I'm sure Apple's going to, make a good chunk on, iPhone converts who don't want to, risk getting another Samsung phone now. But I also think LG will stand to gain because, Apple deleted the headphone jack on the new iPhones. Yes, there's a dongle adapter, but you're not going to showroom the dongle.
You know what? Anybody who's tried to use the one of the new Moto phones that likes a headphone jack will tell you like it's something that comes up, even if you don't think you use a headphone jack that often. Like there are times you're just like, hey, I sure wish I had that headphone jack.
And there are still tons of people who do use it anyway. And so, with the iPhone, if you walk into a carrier store, well, you'll notice that the iPhone doesn't have a headphone jack, and the rep will tell you, oh, there's an adapter in the box or whatever, and that's immediately like,
I've actually talked to several regular people who buy iPhones, and were asking me like what Android phone they should get because they're like, I don't want to get the new iPhone, it doesn't have a headphone jack.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I think that LG will see some spillover from iPhone people looking for an alternative, and then from Note 7 people who feel scorned and don't want an iPhone probably because it doesn't have a headphone jack. And so the V20 will I would not be surprised if it does significantly better than the V10 did. The V10 was pretty well loved by most people who bought it.
I feel like when the V10 came out, it was very much like well, I guess that's kind of cool. But over time, it got more popular, and the people who bought it were like evangelists for that phone. And then when the G5 was kind of not so good, I feel like the V10 people were like, see, we told you, you should just buy a V10.
Yeah. So I think that LG could get quite a few people. Now that said, the pre-production version I have, the software is not done. The more I use it, the more weird issues I'm running into. So I'm hoping to get a production version soon. I think LG said later in the month we'd have one. So if you see reviews of the V20 out there, they're using the pre-production version, and it's definitely not ready.
Yeah, did LG not stipulate that you can't?
LG did stipulate that, but in my experience, if you were at the physical event, they did a really bad job stipulating it. Like they needed to give a piece of paper saying like, "Hey, listen, you can't review the phone," because people are doing it anyway. Yeah, so I'm having strange issues with it, and I won't even go into what they are because it's not fair to LG to judge the device when it's not done.
So let me ask you though, so like the removable back, does it feel like, is it solid? Does it feel like a solid phone when it's closed?
When it's closed, I mean the phone feels pretty solid. I mean the back it's just a solid sheet of aluminum. So it's just a little cast piece of aluminum or stamped or whatever they did. I don't know if you can stamp aluminum, so it's probably cast. With it on, there is a tiny bit of play you can encourage if you press the right area, but it's not noticeable. It feels like a single-piece device when you hold it, definitely. So I think they got most of that down. It still does not feel as nice as a Samsung phone or really an iPhone. And I think that's going to be a perception problem for LG. Whether or not, this is regardless of LG saying stuff about MIL A10G ruggedized and, what materials really mean and, what's actually nice or high quality. But if you pick up the V20 and then you pick up a Galaxy S7 Edge or a Note 7, you'll be like, oh, well, yeah, the Samsung's nicer. It's going to be everybody's conclusion, especially for regular consumers. So I think that's still kind of a trouble spot for LG as far as brand perception goes. It's not really a substantive complaint, but it's one that's real to people when they go shopping for phones. I like the ticker display too. I think the ticker display could be the big thing maybe that sells the phone, because the ticker display is fully active when the screen's off, so you can use all the stuff on it.
So is there a lot of bleed onto the main display from the ticker? That was a big problem with the V10.
So on my pre-production phone, yeah, there's a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, I bet it's just gonna be like that, because the V10 was the same way. You could, if you were in even kind of a dim room and the phone was asleep, you could see a big blob of white coming from the secondary display.
Yeah, I think I've got kind of a reverse issue of that, where the top of the regular screen looks a little dark in the top center.
Maybe they're trying to tune it to not be as noticeable.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were doing, but again, it's pre-production, so I can't really judge them for it yet. Have to get a final phone.
I assume that it's the same kind of deal where the secondary display is actually the same as the primary display, and it just has another backlight that is not separated.
Yeah.
It can't be separated because it's the same panel.
Yeah, I think that's the situation as well. So
it bugs me that it's not centered, though. I really am not okay with that.
But I also think that the wide angle rear camera will sell a lot of people if they can demo that,
Yeah,
because
that was one of the coolest parts of the G5.
easily. And while the wide angle camera's sensor is not nearly as good as the main camera's one, the perspectives you can get, especially for outdoor shots or like trying to capture a room, are really cool. You can actually like take a picture of a room and it feels like a room, because you get a much better sense of space and depth. So I think that I think that's gonna be a cool thing for consumers. Granted, the iPhone 7 basically has that now too, and I'm guessing their whole like fake zoom thing works a lot better than it does on the V20, because on the V20 and G5, it's pretty janky. No way around that. The switch is slow, and then the wide angle camera, because it's only 8 megapixels, the little area of zoom you have for that, it's very grainy until it switches to the narrow angle. So, but I think this is LG's like best chance to make people pay attention to them, for phones in a long time. I don't think since probably the G3, has there been anything in LG's mobile portfolio really worth getting excited about.
Do you think they're just going to straight up give up on the modular stuff?
I think that they're probably still deciding. I wonder if G6 will have any of that. I kind of doubt it will. I think they were just such a hard flop that
it would be. I mean, they haven't even like floated an idea for another mod, or another module. So it would be weird for them to not just cut their losses. It seems like it'd be an easy decision to just give up on that.
Yeah, I assume, especially after the ritual firing of the executives, that seems like a likely outcome.
All right, so we got a Moto Z Play review unit in Ryan's hands over there. So
Yes.
I guess let's chat a little bit about that. Although I feel like, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like there's just been a lot of Moto devices that we've reviewed in the last couple of months, and I can't keep them all straight, not going to lie.
Yeah, Lenovo's strategy seems to be make more phones, which is maybe not the best strategy.
Well, and make more phones and then release them all at basically the same time.
And then make them all exclusive to Verizon for a couple months, because whatever.
Why not?
Okay, so look, this is the best Moto Z phone. And it's also the cheapest, which probably makes Motorola designers kind of sad. But seriously, like, it has a headphone jack, like on the bottom. There's a headphone jack. So right away, get a big leg up on the Z and Z Force, which do not have that. So this one, it retails for about $400, and then it's like almost $700, $800 for the Z and the Z Force. So it's a lot cheaper. And if you're actually interested in like buying the Moto mods for this phone, that is a much more palatable option, because $700 phone plus $100 to $300 mod, or a phone that starts at $400. It's much easier to sell somebody on that idea. It has some of the same like design features that I think are not great. Like the back is completely flat to accommodate the mods. So I mean, that's not really ideal. It's a little bit thicker. It's about the same thickness as the Z Force, because it has a big battery. It's actually slightly larger than the Moto Z Force battery. The buttons on the side are still kind of bad. They're all spaced the same and are the same shape, and that could be better. And it's got the big hump on the back, of course, for the camera. The screen, it's AMOLED again, but it's only 1080p, so it doesn't look awesome. It looks okay. It has a flash on the front for the front-facing camera. Fingerprint sensor on the bottom. Best thing about this phone, though, is the battery life. It is insane. It's like, I think the screenshot I posted in the review was like 13 hours or something of screen on time. It was really good. That was like a little bit better than like what I was usually getting, but I was getting easily over 10 hours of like of active use. So 2 days of battery life on this phone of like pretty heavy usage is fine. Maybe even more if you use it lightly. And if you buy the battery mod for this phone, like, it becomes a giant brick, but it will probably last the better part of a week, I would imagine. I started to do a rundown test of this phone with the battery mod attached, and I just didn't have time. Like, it was like I was like 2 days in, and there was still like a pretty sizable amount of battery left. I was like, this yeah, whatever. It's gonna just add time. We'll just go with that. So, I mean, if you are like really concerned about having a phone that will last a long time off the charger, then this is something you could definitely consider. The unlocked version of it is going to be $50 more than the Verizon price, $450, which is kind of dumb. But I guess that's what Motorola is doing, because the Moto Z unlocked is going to be more expensive than the Verizon version as well. So, I mean, at $450, I think it's kind of a tough sell. We'll have to see like what the Pixel phones come out priced at. But I mean, the battery life, again, it's like, it's really impressive battery life. That's the best thing I can say about the phone. And pricing is fine if, having a modular phone is important to you. I don't know whether it is, though, to anybody.
Yeah, I'd say this is easily the best of the Z lineup. I don't really understand why the other two phones exist.
Yeah, the other two are way too expensive.
Yeah, if you want a ruggedized phone, like, all right, I guess. That's fine.
The Force. Yeah, I have a friend that bought the Moto Z Force, and I asked him, like, he was using it one day. I was like, wait, did you buy that? And he's like, yeah. Why? It turns out Verizon was running this promotion where if you had a broken phone, they would give you like $300 off the Z Force. So and he happened to have a cracked Galaxy S6, so he jumped on that. Otherwise, I can't imagine why you buy it.
Yeah, they're just way too expensive, and
sometimes you just can't really equate the decisions that people make when buying phones. I work with a guy who just last week or the week before bought a BlackBerry Priv. So
he thinks he needs a physical keyboard, but he's probably wrong.
No, here's the thing. He had a Galaxy S7 Edge, and he traded it for a Priv.
What? That doesn't even make it.
It doesn't.
That doesn't
make sense. I explained to him at length how little sense that made. But
I mean, is he older? Could he have maybe had a stroke?
He's younger than me.
Yikes.
That's like buying. It's like buying the top of the line, fully. It's like buying a BMW M3 and be like, I'd rather have a base model Mustang instead, guys. I think it's just going to be a better experience. Like, the BlackBerry Priv sucks. I don't care what it is. It's a shitty phone. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Here it is.
But it has
I took a picture of it because I thought I will never see one of these again.
I don't think I've ever seen one in real life.
Mm-hmm. I had never seen one before. And David, you're right. They are heavy. I would hate it if I dropped it on my face in bed.
Yeah, it doesn't feel nice. I've got mine over here. It doesn't feel nice. It feels cheap. It feels like a cheap, crappy phone. Like, I don't even understand what they're going for. It's such a bizarre phone.
I was on the review unit list for like 2 months when that first came out, and they kept being like, no, we're going to send one. And then one day they're like, actually, we've canceled the review program. And I was like, I bet I know why.
Everyone hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that is so strange. Of all phones, I wonder, like, I guess maybe just the keyboard factor. I do know some people out there bought them, and some people are happy with them. I mean, if you were happy with like a totally subpar, like it's a Snapdragon 808. Chip sucks. It's just a compromised device.
So I will say that this particular dude happens to swap phones a lot, and he was actually a big fan of the Passport?
Oh God, the brick phone,
square one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing is bizarre. BlackBerry was still like pushing that up until I think it's CES this year. They had a little
very recently. I mean, because that was their most recent like high-end BlackBerry OS device.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, that says a lot about BlackBerry. Their big bet. Yeah, but what if we make the phone like squarish? I think people are really going to go for that.
That worked.
I love the LG View.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was about to say the LG View worked out so well.
Oh man, I every time somebody brings up that phone, I like have like shell shock. I don't want to remember that existed.
They made 2 of them.
They did. I want to remember that even less. But yeah, the Moto Z Play, I actually like it for what it is myself. I've got my review unit over here, and I'm sure that eventually there'll be some kind of discount on it. And if it was $400 unlocked, I would say, despite the fact that like the Snapdragon 625 chipset on paper sounds like a dog, unless you're doing like gaming,
Yeah.
Moto optimized it pretty well.
Yeah,
They did a good
gaming
job.
is the only time where you really like feel like this is not a good enough chip. But I mean, for just like general like usage stuff, it seems fine.
Yeah, so I think they did good, and the battery life is epic. And yeah, and it has a headphone jack. Like,
Yeah,
I honestly
And,
wonder if Verizon is going to have an issue of like selling too many of these. I mean,
you know what?
nobody buying
What
the
is
Z and
like
Z Force.
is weird for me is like it's the same thickness as the Z Force. Like the Z Force could have a headphone jack, but Motorola's just like, well, we're gonna release them at the same time.
Yeah,
It'd be
but Ryan,
weird
they
if
couldn't
one
fit the
didn't-
engineering in there. This just
That's
doesn't. It won't
and-
fit.
And clearly, this is proof that that is bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It is complete and utter BS.
It
So,
was, you know what it was? It was courage. Motorola is courageous.
really courageous.
I think, yeah. Well, I would say that I think the courage comes from the fact that they realized they made a mistake and backed out on it, but they were designing these phones at the same time, so you can't even give them that kind of credit. Yeah. Anyways. Hey, we got a couple of emails. One is actually from last week, and you'll tell really readily that it was from last week when I read it off. But let's knock these emails out real quick. So first one is from Taylor. He says, with the release date of Allo still unknown and Apple hosting an event on September 7th, of course, a week ago today, do you think this will cause adoption issues for Allo? In the past, when Apple announces new products and features, it can really suck the air out of the technology space. I think hardcore Googlers will download it right away, but the Apple people are going to be too busy downloading the new version of iMessage. So what do you think, guys? Is this a poorly timed release due to Apple announcements?
I think we left off a sentence, but we went kind of from like a hypothesis to a conclusion in that email. I think everybody knows that Apple gets all the attention when they announce something. Like I don't even think that Google's looking to compete on that. Their event is a whole month after that, and I assume that's when they're going to debut Allo, even though they said summer. And I don't think that Allo was particularly destined to be an instant hit anyways. So I don't know what my answer is supposed to be out of that, but
Yeah. I don't understand. There's nothing that would make iPhone owners aware of this, regardless of if there is or is not a new iPhone. I mean, iPhone users are generally barely aware of WhatsApp. So it's I think Allo is probably going to see more interest, probably in markets where Apple isn't as strong, just because I don't think there will ever be an incentive for Apple people to use a Google Chat app. I don't think Apple really hurt Allo's already poor chances of becoming popular. I don't think it's really a factor in the equation.
All right, our next email is from Will. He says, this might sound a bit weird, but I use a keyboard that does not show all the new Android 7.0 emojis, even though I'm running Nougat. Is there a way to make them show up? The keyboard I use is Ultra Keyboard. The app hasn't been updated since 2014, but it's still my favorite. It does allow you to choose different font families and emojis, but I'm not seeing the new ones.
So the answer is kind of, but not really, because Google hasn't actually released the updated Noto fonts, which are the fonts that contain the emoji font. So it's not something that you can go download yet.
But you will be able to.
Presumably, yes, they will update it with the new emojis, but when that will happen is anybody's guess. I would venture to bet in the coming months.
But and that would still require the developer to do something, though.
Well, it says it can. Well, no, you're right. It would.
Yeah, so I would question whether other packs have the new emojis, which it sounds like they don't. But if they don't, then yes, the keyboard would need to allow for those things to exist.
Yeah, I am unsure why somebody would use this. I'm looking at the listing for it on the Play Store, and it is weird.
So maybe the recommendation is, it's
time to move on.
The other options are viable.
Our recommendation is you stop using the thing you want us to help you fix and just use something
not supported since 2014 is that app's dead, and it's just going to get deader.
Yeah, and it's pretty ugly too.
Even if a developer doesn't update an app for like a month, everyone starts saying it's dead in the first place.
Well,
So
I mean,
2 years is like
only if it was Couch.
we're like, well, true. We're I mean, that's like one day. If he doesn't update an app every day, then it's dead.
Guys,
But
I would like to point out that this uses T9 type entry with flow control. So
That's
that
scary.
is quite a specific feature set.
Is that I wonder if that's actually why he used it.
That would make sense if that is why you're using it. And
But I mean, I really like the Google keyboard these days. I just don't I don't think any other keyboard is as accurate with swipe input, and like now that it has themes and everything, it's just a very nice keyboard.
yeah, yeah. But if you need it for such a specific thing, then yeah, for now you're screwed. Maybe later, maybe
although,
not.
I mean, in 2 years' time, you could probably learn how to make your own keyboard.
Yeah, I bet that there's probably some app that's been open sourced at some point that could help you do
Yeah,
that.
totally. Just figure out how to add the code points for the new emojis, and presto.
Presto. There you have it. That was the least helpful help you'll ever get from a emailed-in podcast. So, all right. Well, hey, if you would like more useless answers to your probably better questions than we give them credit to be, you can email us at podcast@androidpolice.com. You can also give us a call at 530-HELLO-AP. That is 530-435-5627. You can also find us on Twitter at Android Police and on Google Plus and Facebook. So thanks for listening, everybody.
And thank you again to Linode for sponsoring the Android Police podcast. You can check them out at linode.com/Android Police to get your free $20 Linode service credit. Okay. And I'm going to start the broadcast.